let me just dive right in. We're starting a new series today called This Is My Story. Kind of borrowing that familiar earworm tagline from the song Blessed Assurance, the old Fanny Crosby hymn, which is so strong and just awesome. And we're going with this idea that everybody has a story. And I want to start today just by saying from the beginning of time, like from all of recorded history through till now, people have been captivated, enraptured by the power of story. Cast your mind back, depending on your reference point of history, people sitting around campfires, and there is no technology, there is no written word, there's nothing painted on cave walls, it's just the tribe that's around the campfire. They're maybe sharing a meal and they're ready to bed down for the night. And it's grandpa or it's uncle or it's dad or it's someone else who's sharing a story about what happened long, long ago. Story. All the way from there, of course, then we, learned how to write on cave walls with pigmentation and create all kinds of stories that way. And those stories have gone through the ages as archaeologists have found them. And then we learned the technology of writing things down on paper, or papyrus as they call it. And so they would take things, and instead of making the symbols and sketches on caves or on tablets of stone, they would take something that was a little lighter and a little more portable, and they would write that down on these pieces of vellum or animal skin or birch bark or something. And then we fast forwarded all the way to the Reformation and the Renaissance, when the printing press was invented. And instead of having to write everything down longhand or put it on a tablet by a chisel or paint it on a cave wall or share it this way, we could put it in a printed document. We could bind that together and we could share information one with the other, and stories proliferated around the world. Stories captivate. For about 490 years, that was like the pinnacle of technology until a young man named Thomas Edison came along. Anybody ever heard of Edison? Thomas Edison, he's famous for the light bulb. Thomas Edison invented the motion picture. First black and white and silent, and people would throng to the theaters. Why? They wanted to hear a story. They wanted to know another story. They wanted to see the hero in the middle of danger and come through the danger, and they wanted to be inspired as the hero came through all of that. We'll fast forward to today, the proliferation of Prime Video and Netflix, and we could just stand here all day and just talk about all of the different subscriptions you could have, Disney, and on and on and on. And we've seen Walt Disney come and go, and all of these people who have captivated us the same way people long ago around a campfire were captivated by story. Story is ingrained in our culture. Story is ingrained in our lives. And as people, we have a propensity to want to hear stories, to want to hear a new story and see what else is happening. How is the character, the hero, going to get out of it this time? Stories are powerful. Stories are riveting. Cannot be underestimated. In fact, truth be told, if you ever want to know one of my secret sauces to sermons, except for this sermon, every sermon I ever start with is a story. Hey, let me tell you a story. And then I'll talk about when Robbie was in Sunday school, or I lit fireworks off with my friend and we blew our thumbs off, or something dumb, and then you'll be like, oh, Pastor Rob's a good guy. Oh, okay, I'll listen to this. It's all by intent. Why? Because we're prone to story. We love story. Anytime you'll go to a conference or hear a speaker for the first time, you've never met them before, you will invariably love that if they're any kind of crafted order, because they will tell you their story. And in that moment, it doesn't matter whether there's 10,000 people or 30 people in the room, in that moment, every person will start to connect with the person on stage because they've shared a story. That's the power of story. It's incredible. It's been our lifeblood for so long. I'm going to talk about in a sec that God speaks in story. If you're in Sunday school, you can learn all about God. You don't need to know theology. You don't need to read any theology books. What Sunday school teachers will tell is the story of Daniel, the story of Joshua, the story of Elijah, right? The story when God overcame the enemies, the story of David. And so you don't even really need to know a whole ton of theology. All you need to know is the story. And once God has told those stories, and those stories have been retold to us, they sink into our memory banks. And then we know the principles of God by story. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What's so good about story? Just scientifically speaking, here's 4 things about story. Number 1 is it increases focus. So far, you're pretty good. You're all locked in with me. I'm going to get to stories. I got like 4 stories today. So just sit tight. We'll get through all the boring stuff first. We'll get there. It increases focus because it's emotive. It's primarily chronological, which means it's easy to follow. And you want to hear what's happening next. That's why those books that are page turners, it's like, well, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? That's why when you're at a movie and it's a good movie and you all of a sudden realize, hey, wait a second, I'm sitting in a theater, and you come to your senses, the story has taken over. And you've been lost. Anybody ever had that experience where you've been lost? You catch yourself and you're like, hey, wait a second. Oh, I'm actually in the theater. And you're right. Or you're in the book and you're just like, somebody talks to you and it's like, not now, not now, not now. That happens to me all the time with my It's also because of the open loop. What's going to happen next? Once upon a time, there was a princess. Okay, I'm in. What happens to this princess? Right? Open loop. Increases focus. Number 2, increases empathy. Scientists will tell us that oxytocin is released when a storyteller tells their story to another person. If there's strong eye contact and confidence, and there's a physical sort of presence connection that way, the oxytocin that is released in the brain is the connecting chemical that's in your brain. And that's why you feel connected. However, if the story is riveting and it's exciting, also in your brain doesn't know the difference between fiction and the reality, and so your brain will release adrenaline if you're watching the Bourne movie or Taken. Right? You're with Liam Neeson. Like, you're with him. It's like, let's get these guys. Take these guys down. Adrenaline starts to surge. That's why we love movies. Dopamine also, when that loop is finally closed, and that's why at the end of the movie you're just like, you're bawling your eyes. If you're a crier, every once in a while, you're crying. And you just get all these good feelings. Story. God knows. Increases empathy. Number 3 is it reduces self-referential thinking. Why do we love Netflix so much? You know why we love Netflix so much? Is it's an escape. It's an escape. Because we're in our head about the conflict at work. We're in our head with the conflict with our spouse, or with a kid, or with a parent, and we're not sure exactly what to do. And so there's stress, and all of this cortisol is flowing through your body, and you're like, I just need a break. And you flop down on the couch, you click the Netflix, and you're like, I will basically do anything to get rid of this feeling. It stops that self-referential thinking. It actually allows for free thinking. I find this oftentimes when I'm listening to a sermon and there's a good story, I will all of a sudden get all kinds of creative sermon ideas. Anybody with me? You get sort of all kinds of different ideas, creative things. And then 4, it makes information memorable. Makes information memorable. Interesting, Jesus, it was prophesied about Jesus, that he would speak in something called parables. Now, parables are different from story. Parables have a metaphorical meaning, which is like, I'm going to tell you about a farmer or some seed or a tree or something. I'm going to tell you about it. Has a metaphorical meaning, but also parables are kind of like riddles. So they're stories, but you have to work on them. And so the beauty with Jesus was he knew this. This is what was prophesied about him, and how he came to earth. He spoke in stories. The kingdom of God is like a shepherd who had 99 sheep, and he lost one. And so that shepherd, he started searching for that one. You mean he left the 99? See the tension there? He goes out. You can picture the dark nights, maybe raining. You start to image all of that. And then he finds the lost sheep, and the loop begins to be closed as he comes back and he celebrates. Jesus was brilliant. And that you will remember. You might not remember the exact wording of a certain verse that you're trying to memorize or all of the 10 Commandments. It's been documented, well documented, that not a lot of people can remember maybe 2 or 3 of the 10 Commandments. But you'll remember a story. The Bible starts like this. You would think if you were writing a book, I don't know how you would write it. If I was God, I'd be like, okay, I'm God. I'm writing a story. I'm writing something down to you. First of all, make sure you're ready for this because it's going to be a lot. I have a lot in my brain. I'm a big God. It would be all didactic. It would read like a textbook if I was God. Old Testament, Genesis 1, we all know it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. The earth was formless and void, and the Holy Spirit hovered over the waters. And your hair stands up a little bit, and you lean in a little bit because God's about to tell the story. In the New Testament, it's the same. And John picks up from this because he's like, I see what you're doing here. And so he says, when Jesus comes, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he was with God in the beginning. Almost parabolic, right? Because you're like, wait a second, who's the Word? Oh, it's the Logos. It's like the Word. I'm writing words, but he is the Word. And then he breaks it down from there. Powerful, powerful stuff. God understands story. And here's what he challenges us with in Psalm 107:2. This is what we need to pick up. Is in Psalm 107:2. It says, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. Please today read this psalm. It is so powerful. There's 4 or 5 different little snippets where the writer of the psalm here just kind of goes through, well, God did this, and God did this, and God did this. Great is the love of the Lord, his mercy endures forever. That's the verse preceding. And then it just goes through. He did this, he did this, he did this, all the stories. At the end of the book, at the end of time, at the end of all the conflict, Revelation 12:11, we've used this a lot of times. It says, they have won the fight. This is the we. I've never used this translation before, but I like the wording of it. They have won the fight against him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb's death and by what they said, the story of redemption they told. Our God is greater. Our God is bigger. Our God is victorious. Our God has conquered. And we're in. We're in. That word, story, you often heard it. The famous one is they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. That word testimony in the Greek is pronounced marturia. Marturia, got that good, right? It's only 4 syllables, so I should be able to handle that. Marturia. It's literally when there's a courtroom scene and there's somebody on trial for a crime and they bring a witness to the stand and the witness stands up and the witness gives their marturia, their story, their testimony. It's like, okay, this is serious. This is a moment in time. What say ye? And there's some stakes at play. So here's where I'm going to transition, and I should have led with the story, but I'm going to go back to story here. A few years ago, I did a walk across Spain, and I think, we have a map. You can go to the map for a second. So there's a bunch of different ways here, but if you look at the red line that starts with the number 1, this is the Santiago de Compostela, which means the path of the stars. A lot of history there, I'll explain in just a second, but I essentially walked from the borders of France all the way across. It was 800 kilometers, 500 miles. 500 miles. 2021, I did this. And this was pivotal. This was pivotal in my life. This was life-changing. In fact, I'm still working through the process of trying to understand what I learned on this trip. But it was one of those things where I could completely unplug and just literally do me. As I've come through this experience, I journaled the entire time, videotape, pictures, the whole 9 yards. And then I was led to, and I've been writing a memoir about this experience. Many people have done this. I'm not the only one. Many people have done it, but I'm in the middle of doing that. My first draft was horrible. You can laugh about this, fine. I'm not a writer. My first draft was horrible, and I gave it to some people that I trusted, and one of them said, hey, have you ever thought about checking this out with a writing coach? Ooh, that sounds fancy. Writing coach sounds expensive too. Writing coach, okay, I'll bite. I'll do that. And so I passed 50 pages of my document at the time to this professional writing coach, paid my $300, and she came back and guys, it was not good. It was not good. It was not good at all. And so I was like somebody punched me in the face. I was back on my heels. I fell, on my butt, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm not a writer. I'm not going to do this. Until the Lord said, you have a story to tell. You have a story to tell. And so I put my big boy pants on. I stepped back into this, and I thought, okay, I'm going to look at what she said that I should do, and I'm going to try. And so I started to do that, and I passed it by Carolyn, and Carolyn gave me the 2 thumbs up. And she reads a lot, so I thought, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. And I started down the road a little bit more, how to tell my story better. How do I tell my story the best way I know how? And then I learned, in my process of trying to understand, I learned that I was writing a memoir, and I did not know that. I was writing a memoir, and so many of you will think, well, isn't that what presidents write? Sometimes. Difference, and I learned this, so I'll teach you, I'll educate you. Autobiographies is somebody who writes in the first person and they tell their entire story. Biography, this is my entire life story. Biography is when somebody else writes about you. And memoir is a life experience that you've had, but it has a beginning and an end. And it's not your entire life. It can involve different areas of your life, but it's basically a point in time. That's a memoir. So some people will write a memoir about, their time in office, but it'll only be that. Or a rock star will talk about, hey, here's what it was like to be on the road with XYZ band, memoir. And so I learned about writing memoir that when you write a memoir, it should read like a novel. If you want it to really connect with people, it should read like a novel. We're talking about the exchange of information here. To communicate with you, the best way to communicate with you is story. When you're writing a book, when you're writing it down, the best way to do that is to make it like a novel. Which means you have a person in their comfort zone, where they're all happy, and then you throw a wrench into the gears, and they have to make a decision to change their life. Think about Morpheus when he hands Nemo, what's his name? Neo, the blue or red pill, right? He's got the moment where he's got to choose. He can go back to life as it was, or he can cross the threshold. That moment, you have to create that moment in your book, and then you have to cross the threshold, and now you got people with you. And then you have to put, and I'll use this term exactly as it is, you have to put that character through hell. Because it's through the perseverance of the problems and the adversity he faces or she faces that you experience that euphoria at the end. So I've read multiple memoirs over the last number of months, a lot about hiking, some not. And I learned that the definition of story is someone who wants something and has to overcome obstacles to get it. And I thought, there it is, that's God. That's God. Someone who wants something. What did Jesus say? I came to seek and save that which was lost. I want something. I want connection with my people. Right? In the beginning, right? And then all hell broke loose. And then Jesus steps onto the scene. He crosses that threshold. And he says, I'm going to lay my life down for you. And I'm going to go through all kinds of pain and torment. And then he arises after all the obstacles and adversity. And he becomes the champion of all time. Why it's called his story. His story. Someone who wants something and has overcome obstacles to get it. So my story, I did the Camino in 2021, but that's not where the story started. The story for me started long time before that. When I was starting, actually, can you go to that first slide? I think it's just 4 people. This is me on my first morning. I had no clue what I was getting into. So this is Chase and Rick and Kestrel, and I met them all the day before. And we were going to walk all together. And Kestrel and Chase, if you just look at them and you look at their age and then you look at mine and Rick's age, you go, okay, they're not going to be with us long. So it was about maybe 20 minutes, and they were gone. Like they were just gone. And so Rick became my walking buddy for the first 7 or 8 days. And our first day was in the Pyrenees Mountains. So when you cross the border from France into Spain, you cross through the Pyrenees Mountains. We have a couple of pictures of that. Don't show the Rick one just yet. So this is us looking. We're starting. You can see how the house is up on the hill there. Everything about this day was completely straight up. Completely straight up. And I was not ready for this. If you wanted to see Pastor Rob at his worst, it might have been today or a day I'll tell you about in just a second. But you can see the mountains in the distance. Let's go to the next one. So this is what we're kind of walking across. So there's snow cap in the wintertime. We were here in the summertime. And so we're in this mountain, and I am not prepared. And so we're trudging along, and we're both looking at each other. Sweat is pouring from our brows. Our hearts are racing. We are huffing and puffing like no other. And it's like 1 kilometer in, right? We have 20 kilometers to go. The thing about this day as well is because it's in the mountains, there's no stops in between. There's one stop, but there's really no little villages or anything. And we have to get to this place called Roncesvalles by the end of the night, which is about 20 kilometers away. And so we're walking. It is not going well. And I often say, like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I'm like, that first kilometer punched me in the mouth. And I started taking videos and pictures and all kinds of whatnot because I just wanted to catch my breath. And so there was other hikers that were kind of blowing past us, and we decided that we would just maybe go 100 meters at a time, and we would stop and we would catch our breath and all that stuff. But in our minds, the doubt crept in within the first couple of kilometers. We are not prepared for this. There's no way that we can do this. Is this what it's like? Is this what I signed up for? And why in the world did I sign up for it? So I kept on walking, and I kept getting hotter, and my face was completely red, and all the water was draining out of my body. We keep on trying to do our little formula of 100 kilometers and then a break, and I get to the top of this one rise, and my head starts swimming. And I start to see stars, and I start to kind of almost black out. And so I'm at the top, and I got my poles, and I'm just like, dude, I don't feel good. And I'm just standing there in the middle of the path, and I'm just trying to stay upright. And I was at the top end of my exertion level. And I stood there in the middle of the historic path of the El Camino de Santiago, 1,200 years in the making, and I puked my guts out. Isn't this fun? Rick looked at me and he's just like, bro, I'm so sorry, you're feeling so bad. But I gotta get going, so see ya. It's like, wow, fair weather friend. He took off. I sat down by the side of the path. I had these cool zip-off pants that I had bought because those are hiking pants. I realized that I was just too overdressed. So I took off a layer and took off the bottoms of my pants and took my hat off and cooled down, took some water, and my heart rate came down and everything started to settle. And I thought, okay, well, I only have one choice. Well, I have 2 choices. And this was my moment. Red pill, blue pill. I could go back and buy another flight. My flight wasn't for another 40 days. I could go back. It wasn't that far. All downhill. Or I could go forward. I thought, well, I'll at least try and make Roncesvalles this day. It was in that moment that I started to realize that why I was doing this. And the reason I was doing this, and this is, I'll give you, this is, maybe I've alluded to some of this in the past, but this is really kind of at the core of who I am. Remember, story is somebody who wants something and has to overcome obstacles to get it. And I wanted something, and I had to overcome these obstacles to get it. I'm still unpacking it. Going back years ago, and like I said, the Camino didn't start then, it started years ago. I was born the youngest of 5. Most of you know that. Most of you know that my siblings would taunt me and tease me mercilessly because my parents wanted 4 kids. And they got their 4 kids. And then 3 years after the 4th miracle child that they had, yours truly showed up on the scene. So, I can only imagine, because I have 3 kids, and some of you that are also having multiple kids, right? Having all kinds of kids. Kids are stressful. And a busy household. So my mom was up to here. The last thing on my mom's mind was getting pregnant, especially when the plan was to have 4. And so I can only imagine when she went to the doctor or did the pregnancy test and found out she was pregnant with the 5th child. She was like, oh no. That's me. So now my siblings, you would think they'd be nice to me, gracious and all that stuff. No. You were a sibling once too, and they had no idea what they were doing, but you were not wanted. You are an accident. That goes deep into a kid. They say sticks and stones will break your bones and names will never hurt you. It's not true. I was filled with shame because I believed what they said. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't worth anything. I was just an accident. I was unwanted. And so that led me, because of all of these lies in my head, to lead a very chaotic childhood that matched with some, undiagnosed ADHD. My childhood was chaotic. I was a troubled child. And you've heard multiple stories about that. It was not great. It was not great in school. It was not great at church. I was just an uncontrolled little boy trying to piece together this emotional bag of tricks that I was handed. And so as I grew older and I went through puberty and went to high school and all those things, something changed in me because I had to interact with people at a different level. And so what I started to do, because I thought of myself unworthy and shame-filled, I started to live out that script that I'm not worthy. I was the youngest of 5. My voice was never heard. So I always just came under whatever was happening. If anybody wanted to do something, I'd be like, okay, sure, your plan. I became a people pleaser. And to this day, I'm still working my way through not being a people pleaser. There was no sense of agency for me. Why? Because my opinion just didn't matter. I was unworthy. I wasn't wanted. I was an accident. I really shouldn't even be in this conversation in my head. So I had this inferiority complex and living out this script of just being broken and just really not being worth a whole lot. Somehow along the way, God decided to use all of that and put me in full-time ministry, which sometimes out of your greatest need you serve, right? That's the way that works sometimes. And fast forward into my adult life, I get to middle age and I thought, well, I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to do this. And I realized that hole of shame had still not been healed. And there was a certain occasion, I won't go into all of that, but where I just was like, I'm sick and tired of living by other people's expectations of me. I'm running myself ragged, trying to please everybody in my life. And it's killing me. Because that was one script that I had. And there was this other script that I got from somewhere, that you matter. That you have potential. Not just you have potential, but you can do things. You can be significant. You can help people. You can give things to the world. You can contribute. You're gifted. You're wanted. You're valued. And again, as I grew up and lived my life in adulthood, these things just kept crashing and banging together until there was this explosion. And I had written down a whole bunch of goals, in a period of time. And one of them was I was going to walk the Camino de Santiago, which I wrote down, and I was just like, well, that probably never happened, but I'll write it down as a goal. And so we went through COVID, and after coming out of COVID, I actually talked to the church board, and they were so gracious to let me go and do this adventure. And the point of my story was I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to just be me. I needed to break away from everything that was what was expected of me in my life that I had built, and I needed to get away, and so that was it. So because you go on the Camino, and you can just experience yourself as you truly are. You can be who you truly are. Live the script that you want to live. So I started that one day, and I thought, why in the world am I doing this? The night before I began, there was a hospitalero, which is kind of like the host of the albergue or the hostel that you stay at. And he, we weren't asking for any advice, but he dropped some advice on us, me and Kestrel. We actually were checking into this place. And he said, don't book ahead. The Camino will provide. I was like, well, what does that mean? I'll maybe still book ahead. No, you need to give yourself to the process. Most people think they walk the Camino walks them. Because by the time you get to the end, man, you are in tatters. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. And you are in a place where you can only submit to God. And the second thing he said was, walk your own path. Walk your own way. And I thought, oh, that's what I came for. That's what I want to do. I want to be fully me. I'm tired of living with this inferiority complex, not wanted, not worthy, an accident, worth nothing. I want to shed all of that, and I want to live with purpose. And so you saw Alicia, or you saw Rick in that picture. There's another. Do you have a picture of Alicia and Rick? Oh, well, this is me and him. This is after I puked. Because after I puked, what happened was I actually caught up to him because he was just sitting on the side too. He was resting. He couldn't go fast. He's like, oh, look at who it is. You came back from the dead. And I'm like, yeah, I came back from the dead. Thanks for leaving me high and dry, bro. And so we ended up, this is at a place called Orison, which is kind of at the top. And you can refresh and all that kind of stuff. And then we walk further from there. We linked up with this girl named Alicia from... She was from Italy, and we walked for about 7 days. And over the course of the 7 days, I was really sensing this tension of, I really want to keep doing this walk. I love these people are great, but this wasn't what I signed up for. And fortunately for me, God gave me an obstacle. He gave me some adversity to overcome, and my feet were just absolutely trashed. I bought some beautiful hiking shoes, Gore-Tex, really expensive. And over the course of the 7 days, I developed blisters, and I developed blisters on my blisters. And I'm not kidding you. I peeled back one blister. I'm like, there's another blister under there. I don't show it yet, Jessica, but I do have a picture. And if you have a weak stomach, I would suggest you close your eyes while we just take a quick look. However, I was walking with Rick and Alicia, and I was feeling this tension. And because of my feet, I actually said to them, I'm going to take a rest day. And Rick had a pretty strong personality, and he was livid that he didn't want to break up. We called ourselves the Trinity. It wasn't my choosing, okay? Anyways, it just because I was a pastor, and they're like, well, I had to go with something spiritual, whatever. But I said to them, I can't go. We're in a little town called Nahira, and I said, I can't go. And Alicia had to be back at a certain time, so she had to keep going, but she was like 22. She was having no problems at all with any of this stuff. And then Rick was 63, and I was like 49 or something. No, 51. And anyway, so I said, I can't go. And so sat on the park bench as I walked them to the edge of town on that day, and they walked on without me. And for the first time on my communal journey, I was alone, like I wanted to be. And I bawled like a baby. I just bawled because I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I spent that day, my feet are gone, my heart is broken. I'm just like, what am I doing? Why am I even here? So I met some new people. We went out for dinner, bed, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do this right. I'm gonna get up early. I'm gonna get a good start. I'll only walk as much as my feet will handle, and I gotta do this on my own. And so I walked the same walk that we walked together, Rick, Alicia, and I, the morning before, and then I came back to town, and they kept going. I got to the edge of town, and it is pitch black. It is so dark. I have one of those little funky headlamps, for the path, and all I can see is like 6, 8 feet in front of me, and like a circle about this big. And I'm walking and I'm marching, and I'm in pain, and I'm lonely, and I'm just like, I don't even know if I'm on the path. The path markers. Is there a path marker there, Jessica? I think there's a path marker. So these are the path markers. You can see how far they're off the path. That's actually Rick and Alicia up in the top. But if you have your headlamp, all you can see is over there. And you can't keep doing this to find the path markers. So I didn't know I was on the path. I'd been walking for a considerable amount of time. And I thought about stopping until the sun came up, because if I was walking and I was lost and I was not on the path, I'd have to walk all that way back to get back on the path. So all of these things are in my head. And I was really looking for some direction, and I prayed. I said, God, I need a sign. I need a sign, like big picture sign. But I also need a small picture sign. Could you help me? Desperate prayers. And so in that moment, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my right eye. It was the edge of a building. And so I looked at the building and I followed the building up. And here's what I saw in the building. Okay. That yellow arrow means you're on the path. The Jesus beside it meant I was on the path. I can't begin to tell you how much. Like, God is saying, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you, dude. It sucks. It's hard. It hurts. You're lonely. You can't see more than 10 feet in front of you. Keep going. I'm with you. Enter metaphor for life right here. And so I walked for a couple of more days, and I ended up in a place called Bellarado. When I was in Bellarado, I did my evening routine. I had dinner. I made plans to have dinner with a person that I had met the night in Nahira. His name was Joe. And we sat down to dinner, and I said, dude, I'm not feeling good. I am not feeling good at all. And so I was flushed in the face. I was kind of feverish. My heart was fluttering, and palms were sweaty, and it was just, I don't even know what's going on. And so my dinner was served. I couldn't eat it. I went to bed. About midnight, my eyes snapped open as my stomach was doing flip-flops. And I was like, I'm going to throw up again. I'm going to throw up. And so I was in my bunk. There's a small room, 12 bunks, and everybody was sleeping. We all had walked. We were all hurting. And I thought, I got to get out of here, and I got to go deal with this stomach issue, whatever it is. Well, I didn't make it. And in my bed that night, I just vomited all over myself and all over the side of the bed. I mean, it's pitch black in the room. But I staggered to my feet, tried to get myself in the hallway, tried to get down to the bathroom. And I stood there and I was like, I didn't know somebody could vomit this much. Just the whole hallway was just covered with this. So again, I have no idea. I thought, did I eat something? Like, what in the world is this? I woke up in the morning, and of course, a friend came, actually a pastor friend. Here's the grace of God as well. A pastor friend of mine came to me in the darkness, and nobody else even stirred. They're just like, yeah, you're on your own. No mommy's here. And so this guy came to me, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm just like, I'm just so sick. I can't even see straight. I can't think straight. And so he came out, held his flashlight on his iPhone while I mopped up the puke with my towel. Non-absorbent. Add insult to injury. Try to, mop this up. It's not absorbent. And so anyway, so in the morning I was just laying there. Now in hostels you have to be out by 8 a.m. So I am just not in a good way. And I'm laying there, and there was the guy I met before. His name was Joe. Actually, we can show his picture. You can look at him while I'm telling the story. That's Joe. So Joe was also wanting to have a rest day, but he kind of understood what was happening. And so Joe, without me knowing, walked down into town. He actually came to me first, and he said, do you think you might have an infection? And I said, I have no clue. I don't know why I would have an infection. Do you think you might have COVID? Because that would have been great in Spain, on the middle of the path. We were going through the list of things. Do you think it might be heat exertion? Do you think it might be dehydration? On and on and on. So He walked down to town, which was about a kilometer away, came back with a thermometer, and sure enough, I had a high fever. And he said, when I was in town, I noticed there was a clinic open. I think we should take you to the clinic. Okay. I'm like, well, how much is that going to cost? And he arranged for a taxi to come pick me up, take me to the clinic. I went to the clinic. They tested me for COVID. They checked all my vitals. They checked all of the things. And then all of a sudden it dawned on me, well, my feet are like in tatters. There's like skin off everywhere. There's just open sores going every which way. I'm taping things up every morning. And so all of a sudden it dawned on us, like, well, maybe we should check for infection. So the doctor looks at my foot and he goes, yeah, your foot is completely infected. So he says, you're not walking for another week. Like, you have to take a week off. We have to let the antibiotics go. You're stuck here. And you want to talk about adversity. And so I got the antibiotics, and Joe helped me through it all. I didn't speak Spanish. Joe spoke Spanish, so he helped me through it all. He really was an angel. Came back to the albergue. They got me another night for a room. It was in a semi-private room where I could get a little bit better rest and so forth. And got up the next day and took a bus to the next big town. The next big town is called Burgos. It's like about 300,000 people. And I got a hotel that was there for a couple of days. I needed new shoes. My shoes were just killing my feet. My feet had swollen past the size of my shoe, and that was causing all the infection and the problems. And so I probably called Carolyn and just said, like, I think I'm done. Like, this is over, because like, I can't. Doctor says I'm not supposed to walk. Anyways, I took the pills. I felt better. The next day, fever went away. I took Tylenol and all that stuff, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just walk a little. Let's just walk a little. Maybe just 10 kilometers. I don't know. Let's just try. Let's just see. So I walked a little bit. Phil kept getting better. Walked a little bit. And anyways, kept on going. It started to build some strength. Anyways, my new shoes, like my old shoes, gave me tons of problems. And if you got a sick stomach, I'll just show you this. This is the nice one, but I'll show you this. This is my left foot. So that skin all ended up coming off. And you can see my infected toe at the bottom there. Again, if you got a weak stomach, don't look at it. But and then we'll just close the loop here. This is me coming into, and I made it. So overcame adversity. I say all this to say, and let me just close with all of this. And I want to refer to John 9. Can we go there? I just want to read this. We'll put a pin in it, and I'll build a little bit of a thing. You remember John 9, and Jesus is walking along. There's a guy that's born blind, and the disciples say, hey, who sinned? Because they used to believe back then, if there was issues with a birth, right, that it was either the father or the mother, or maybe both had sinned, and they caused the kid to be deformed or whatever. And in this case, this man was born blind. Incidentally, one of the messianic miracles, one of the ways Jesus proved he was God, was to perform a miracle on somebody who was born blind, because they believed only God could do that. You know, if you got hit in the head as a kid on a rock and you went blind, well, maybe that could be reversed with some kind of hocus pocus, but only God could heal somebody born blind. And so Jesus says, neither his son or neither his mother or his father were sinners. He is here for the glory of God, so that the glory of God can be revealed, and then he heals them. And so, of course, this guy who'd been born blind, everybody knew him. He's the blind guy. You know, it's kind of like me, as he's the youngest, he's the schmo, he's the yuck it up, he's the worthless, he's the nothing, he's an accident. Don't count on him for too much. And then Jesus steps into the picture. And this guy is now can see, and he's elated. His family's elated. And so they go to him and they say, tell us what happened. Tell us your story. And he goes, yeah, this Jesus guy just prayed for me and I can see. Like, it doesn't really get much clearer than that. I can't even tell you how it happened. I'm glad it did. So the Pharisees come, they ask him a second time, and this is his response. He replied, whether Jesus is a sinner or not. Because they said, oh, well, he's a sinner because they were always calling him a sinner. I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind. Now I see. I was blind, now I see. And that's the story with us, with Jesus. I was a sinner. I was going to hell. I was living a life that wasn't pleasing to God. And then I gave my life to God. And now I have hope. Now I have joy. Now I have a purpose. Now God's call is on my life. Not that I didn't have value before, but I have more value now. I was once blind and now I see. So story is so powerful. And your story is powerful. I am begging you. I've told you a little bit of my story. Over the next 6-8 weeks, we're going to hear other people's story, and I'm begging you to share your story. You don't have to get up here and share it with a microphone. I'm begging you to look somebody in the eye over coffee, look somebody in the eye at an occasion, and just say, can I tell you about how Jesus changed my life? Or can I tell you my story? And they're like, sure, I'd love to hear a story. It's in the DNA of humanity. And then you just tell them your story. You don't have to debate. You don't have to have all your theology right. You just tell them, hey, this is what was happening for me. I gave my life to Christ. The rest is history. Tell your neighbor. Tell your kids. Tell your grandkids what God has done for you. Can we go back to that slide in Psalms? This is our marching orders. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Let those he redeemed from the hand of the foe. God wants you to tell your story. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all complete. You can tell your version of your memoir, but your story is more powerful than you think. Number 2 is be careful of the stories you tell yourself. Because this is where Satan camps. And Satan will take what your siblings have said, what was said to you on a playground, or what was said to you in grade 4, and that becomes the script that runs in your head. I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm lazy. Whatever, you fill in the blank. We've all got those stories. We've all had those experiences. And we need to stop listening to those stories, those lies, and we need to start listening to the truth of who God says we are. Be careful the stories you tell yourself. And men, can I just say this to you on Father's Day? The world needs good, strong men. And unfortunately, a lot of us in this room, we're living out the stories that were given to us, that are given to us by culture, that we're not enough, we don't measure up unless we look like and be like and all of those things, or somebody else has come along and has cut you off at the knees in your masculinity. And you need to dial into the truth of who you can be as a man of God. And stop listening to the lies of the enemy and who you're not. You may not be physically blinded like the guy in John 9. And it might not be your parents' fault. It might be for the glory of God, that God just wants to resurrect you and change your life and allow you to live out your full potential. And number 3 is there's power to write or rewrite a brand new story. And that's what I love about God's story. When God gets a hold of somebody's life, we've all seen this. I pray we see this more and more. When God gets a hold of your life and you turn your life over to God and you start living according to his principles and his ways and the truth of who he is, and you start to live out the truth of who you are in him, you can write a brand new story. And that goes for anybody. That goes for men specifically, but that goes for anybody in this room. Through the power of God, you can rewrite your story. So I gave this example of John 9, the man that was born blind. And most of you would remember that phrase, not from the Bible, but from a hymn. Right? Remember that? Can you sing it? I once was lost, now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. In the story. Who wrote the story was a man named John Newton. You know that? Put your hand up if you know that. John Newton was a terrible man. Horrible man. He was a sailor. He was a merchant. He was on the ships. And he would travel back and forth from England to Africa on the ships that were used for slave trading. Horrible man, abominable man, alcoholic, vicious, vindictive, angry, all of the things. Came in contact with Jesus. Opening line, he came to himself, he realized who he was. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. And like this guy, was blind, but now I see. A man who was a man that none of us would speak to in this room, a man that was horrible at every level, found Jesus. His story was rewritten, and he wrote a hymn that is essentially the greatest hymn of all time. And that's the story of God. That's the story that's at work in my life. That's the story that can be and is already at work in some of your lives. And God so wants to insert himself in greater ways in your story so that your whole life is changed and transformed into who he wants you to be. Let me pray for us.